If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then please have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, or financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.
Hello everyone, this is DJ and welcome to another episode of RC Retirement. Today I'm going to cover again the simple way, well not really simple, but I'm going to show you how combat related special compensation is calculated and how it compares to the other similar benefit, concurrent receipt or concurrent retired and disability pay, often called concurrent receipt. I was originally going to call this episode CRSC Calculations for Active Duty Retirees, or drop the calculations part. But the more I dug into this, the more I saw that this is not active duty specific. The question itself originally came from an active duty retiree. But the more I dug into this, the more I saw that it was across the board. So thank goodness there are simple rules, at least formulaic rules, that apply regardless of component. So I'm going to go over those. I have borrowed a presentation from the Defense Finance and Accounting Service, DFAS, and simplified it a little bit, and I'm going to use that today to help make my point. Now, for those of you on the podcast, I'm sorry, it's going to be some numbers and whatnot, but I think you'll understand. Real quick, what is combat related special compensation? It was a benefit designed to help offset the offset, if you want to call it that, between retired pay and VA compensation. And this is where things get weird, because combat related special compensation and concurrent retired and disability pay, especially when you just go by their acronyms, CRSC or CRDP, they sound almost the same. Now, the requirements for both are quite different, and I'm not going to go into the specifics of those. Just know that they exist. Now, the other benefit, concurrent retirement and disability pay, is another offset to the offset. It helps make up for some of the, you could say, loss of VA compensation versus military retirement. It has totally separate rules to CRSC, and that's one of the reasons I'm going to make this video today, or this episode today, because a lot of people want to apply for combat related special compensation or think they're eligible for CRDP when one or the other situation may not be the best for them. And that's why I've specifically chosen this particular example from the DFAS presentation. I want to show you how sometimes one is better than the other, or sometimes not. I'm not going to cover the legislative impacts on these two slides upon second thought, because that's just going to take some time. The key takeaways here are CRDP is taxable and CRSC is not. So, or most of the time CRDP is taxable. There are some situations where it's not. But moving on, you can look that up later. The links are in this presentation I'm going to post, and they'll also be in the show notes. So if you're really curious, you can look that up. For now, let's dive right into the situation. So we have a Master Sergeant, and since we have multiple components here, I'll say what that is. That's an E8 with 21 years, a spouse, and 2 children. He enlisted January of '88 and retired in January of 2009. He was injured while deployed to a combat zone. His military disability rating, VA disability rating, and CRSC rating are all 50%. Now, the question here is, what would be most beneficial for this individual, CRSC or CRDP? And since this is assuming an active duty retiree, well, actually it doesn't even have to be active duty, but we're assuming a retiree eligible for pay in all circumstances, all definitions of the word, eligible for retired pay. And now, is it better for him to have CRDP or CRSC? That's what we're going to find out. So first of all, you have to figure out what his high 3 base pay is. For those of you who have seen some of my earlier videos, then you know that high 3 is the situation in which most of us find ourselves, being that the last 3 years of base pay is averaged together and becomes the base pay amount for any percentage retirement purposes. So that's all I'm going to say on that. So on this slide, we've computed that his base pay is $4,240.10. And now we move on. There are 2 ways to compute retired pay. One is for years of service, and the other is for disability percentage. In his case, we have to do both. So, move on. Alright, so retired pay based on disability percentage, that's a very straightforward, simple calculation. We know that his base pay percentage for disability is 50%. Now, if it ever goes above 70%, and since it's always in multiples of 10, if it's 80% or higher, then the maximum he could receive for disability pay on the military side is 75%. In this case, it's 50%, and his retired pay based on disability percentage is $2,120. For those of you watching at home, make note of that number. Next, we compute what his years of service, or I call it length of service, retirement would be. He is under the now old military retirement system, since we have the blended retirement system in place now, but he still falls under the old system. So for every full year of service, he receives 2.5% of base pay. And he had, right on the head, 21 years of service on the active duty side. So that equates to 52.5% of base pay. Multiply that by the high 3 average that we computed a moment ago of $42.40 and 10 cents. 52.5% of that is $2,226. And for those of you watching at home, make note of that number, 2226. Now, here's where things get a little funky. We're going to compute what's called a CRSC Offset. And this is done by taking the disability percentage minus the minus the length of service percentage. And if the retired pay based on length of service is greater than retired pay based on disability, then there's not an offset. And in the case of this individual, there's not an offset. So moving on, now we consult the VA disability rate table to determine what his rate of VA compensation is. And fortunately, the numbers are already here, so you don't have to watch me do that. And I would have done it anyway prior to this. But moving on. The VA compensation rate for a veteran with a spouse and, what was it, 2 children, is $969. Make note of that number. And we will continue. So now we take all of these amounts and do some funkiness. Total monthly pay for this individual is the sum of the retired disability compensations from all sources. Now, here's where it gets a little weird. So we have VA compensation of $969. We have retired pay, $2,226, minus $969. And then we have CRSC, which uses the same rate tables as VA compensation. And we already heard that he has a 50% rating there. So that also equals $969 for a grand total of $3,195. Now, a lot of people are going to say, and they're right, that if you have a length of service retirement, then you are not subject to VA compensation offsets. That's true unless you're trying to receive CRSC. Then the offset happens. That's actually one of the requirements for CRSC. You have to have the VA offset. But as you can see here, once you get over the weirdness of the calculation, it all comes out the same. This is not always the case, though. Sometimes you'll have a person who has a better rate or a better benefit from one type of compensation than another. So let's move on and look at the next example. So now we're going to go to compute his concurrent retired and disability pay. How will that compare to CRSC? So now we're going to learn a new term here. It's called the current baseline offset. Alright, so we take retired pay based on disability or retired pay based on length of service, whichever one of those is higher, and subtract retired pay based on whichever one of those is lower, or VA compensation, whichever of that is lower. So looking at this mythical E8, the higher of the two retired pays is the length of service amount, and the lower of the other two numbers is VA compensation. Unfortunately, you can see on the screen here what's going on. So retired pay of $2,226 minus $969 equals $1,257. This is what is called, this $1,257 is what is called net retired pay. Now we figure out what the maximum CRDP award amount is. So the maximum CRDP amount is calculated by subtracting net retired pay from the retired pay based on years of service. And in that case, it's always years of service. It's not whichever is higher. It's based on the length of service, the years of service amount. So retired pay based on years of service is $2,226, subtract $1,257, and surprise, surprise, we get $967. Now that will not always be the case, but that's how it is in this example. Alright, so now we're going to look at total monthly pay, and you'll have to have forgiven the skip in audio and video because I noticed an error and had to go fix it. Alright, so now we're adding up VA compensation, net retired pay, and the CRDP benefit. And in this case, it comes out to $31.95. So very interesting result there. All right, so now we're going to compare CRSC and CRDP. And the interesting thing with this example is they came out exactly the same. And here's the thing. Think back to what I said a moment ago. CRDP, concurrent retired and disability pay, is taxable. CRSC is not taxable. So if you have a situation in which the total benefits are the same, then definitely take the one that's not taxable. And if you have an amount of CRDP that is higher, consider how much higher that would be. So if it's $50, then the tax consequences are minute, but you've got to consider your total situation. Actually, no, if it's $50 difference, then you should still consider everything. So if you have a taxable situation, you've got to do some math, figure out what is the most beneficial result for you. It might be that even though CRDP is $100 more, that CRSC is better for you. It's going to be different for everybody. Now, another thing to consider, not everyone eligible for one of these is going to be eligible for the other. Just because you've had medical problems start in a combat zone does not mean they're combat related. Just because you work in a hazardous specialty does not mean that any injuries you have are combat related. And I could go on and on with that. I won't, but I could. Alright, so that's a quick example of some of the various or one of the situations that you could see for a retiree trying to get CRSC or CRDP and trying to figure out which is better in that situation. Now what I'm going to do is also pull up a calculation that I've made, and there will be several of these in the show notes. And actually it's not coming up because the computer is being slow. Alright, so I'm going to skip that. But there will be several comparisons of these two benefits in files in the show notes. And I highly advise you to take a look at those. They will be very educational for everyone. But the key takeaway here is don't worry about doing the math yourself, first of all. But here's the way to do it if you want to know. DFAS is going to do this for you. But if you want to know how to do it yourself, here it is. The other takeaway is there's always one that is better than the other. Or rather, there is one that is better than the other, but you can't always say which one that is. Alright, and for my active duty retiree who asked me the question about how CRDP and CRSC would work in his case, after digging through this, his question was, what are the tax consequences if he is fully eligible, 100% eligible for CRSC? And the reason I started digging into this was I was thinking there might still be an offset after CRSC was approved. There is, but up to the amount of VA compensation, and if your retired pay is still higher than that, that remaining amount is not touched. That was the question, was would the remaining amount be subject to offset or not? So the answer to that is no. Thank goodness, right? So that's going to be basically it for this episode. I know it was a bit of a ramble, but these are funky topics. Okay, so if you have any questions about what I've covered today, then please send me an email at dj@rcretirement.com, or of course, if you're on YouTube, put something in the comments and I'll answer them either way. If you're on the podcast, of course, email me. I'm also, like I said, going to put a lot of information, a lot of these comparisons in the show notes, so be sure to take a look at those. If you would like to support my ongoing efforts to educate everyone on retirement benefits, then please consider going to patreon.com/rcretirement and joining at any of the pre-established levels there, or you can create one of your own. Also, if you are a Patreon supporter of $25 or more per month, and then you choose to select me to help you with any various retirement related issues, I will give you a 20% discount on those services. So keep that in mind. And if you're wondering what those services are, then go to rcretirement.com and click the fees for services page. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this episode. I wanted to say this week, but anyway, I don't like saying it because let's keep it normal. So thank you for being here for this episode. If you're on YouTube, of course, hit the like button for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and share information. Obviously, hit the share button too. Share information like this to everyone you know so that they can get the right information in their skulls. We need the right information in order to make the right decision. So thanks again. I look forward to talking to you next time. And until that time comes, thank you for your service. Have a great day.
If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then please have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, or financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.